Duit, agus fáilte, charas. Hello and welcome, beautiful witches, souls, flowers. Today's temple library entry is from the Hearth. So grab a cup of tea or coffee or some sort of liquids and join me at the Hearth. So hello and welcome. Today I'm going to talk and share a little bit about growing up with the Catholic Church in Ireland, ritual conditioning and the layers that come with that. So if you didn't grow up here, this will give you some context, and if you did, you'll know exactly what I mean. It will also make my future temple library entries make a little bit more sense. So also a little content content warning. If you've had any religious trauma, take what feels right and go gently with yourself during these videos, temple library entry podcasts. So we're going to jump in a little bit. I have my anchor points wrote down for anybody that's watching the video, but if you're listening to the podcast, that won't make a difference. I haven't got my glasses on today because I need them for far away. I'm kind of alright up close, so we'll see how we get on. So I'm going to get stuck in. I have some anchor points, as I said here, so that I don't go too off track, and we'll get stuck in. So the first part I'm going to talk about is my experiences with the christening, which is aka a baptism. We call it a christening in Ireland. Then also the first Holy Communion with the confession, which I mentioned slightly in the last one, and then I'm also going to touch on the confirmation as well. And we're going to take a quick look at what these rituals actually are, and we're also going to bring in the white dress of the thread there. Then we'll go into the system, we'll go into the impact, and then we'll go into awareness and breaking it. So grab your cup of tea and let's go on this little walk and journey together. Sorry, I didn't mean to slam that down. Forgot that microphone is very sensitive. So the baptism, aka the christening, that happens at a few months old usually. Sometimes people can be a little bit longer in getting it done, but it usually happens when you're a few weeks or a few months old. So what this is meant to do is welcome you to the faith. It's also meant to remove the original sin, because as a Catholic you're born with original sin, whether you're a baby or not. You're born with this sin and this shame that you need to be cleaned of as soon as you're ready, basically, in their eyes. So that's done as a baby. As I mentioned, there's no consent, there's no awareness. You're a baby, you know. And before we even had words, something was already decided for us. And I will go further into like the conditioning of how that's done and how nobody stopped to even question that for a good while. But for now, I'll keep going here. So yeah, also water is used for purification in that ritual, and girls are dressed in a white dress, and boys are usually in a suit. And then that's done. So you're done there. And I do also want to mention, like, I will get into it more when I get into the end. I wasn't awake, I wasn't on my journey fully when I had my daughter. So I did end up getting her christened, you know, but even at the time I knew this is wrong, I shouldn't be doing this, like, but it was really the done thing for so long. And another big thing about it was, especially when I was younger going to school, you weren't allowed to actually go to school unless you were christened. Like, it's changed now because of the amount of different nationalities, different cultures, different religions and stuff that's in Ireland, but when I was younger, it wasn't. You needed to be christened or else you couldn't go to school. That was one of the main things. So, as I mentioned in the last one, then when you're about 7 or 8, you're going for your first Holy Communion. You're doing your confession. So you're confessing your sins to the priest. Trying to think of what the name of it is, what the official name is, like the Eucharist of Christ or some shit, I don't know, and stuff of it as well. So yeah, you're being told what's right and wrong, what's sinful. Also, during the first communion, you're receiving the body of Christ, so that's when you receive your first bit of cardboard bread, because it just tastes like cardboard. You're also wearing the white dress, and as I mentioned in the earlier video where I touched on ritual and imposed ritual and chosen ritual, I remember trying to make up, I did actually have to make up something, because at the time I remember thinking, I don't have anything to sin for, like, what am I after doing wrong? So, as I mentioned in that last one, I made up some shit about feeling sinful for fighting with me brother. Something like that. So, then by the time you're about 11 or 12, you're making your confirmation. So this is getting you further into the indoctrination of the faith. You do get to wear clothes on your confirmation. You do have to choose a saint's name, and also as well at the baptism, the christening, you're given a name as well to bring you into the faith. So at the confirmation, you're told to pick a saint's name. You can't just pick any name, it has to be a saint's name. Then you're kind of confirming your faith, you're stepping deeper into the church. So really this is like our name, our identity was getting shaped through this. And I do want to also just touch on the thread of the white dress, the symbolic continuity of that. You know, christening is the white dress, that's your purity, that's your initiation. And then you have your communion dress, which is your innocence, your worthiness. And then by the time you're getting married, you're supposed to be in the white wedding dress for purity and transition into wifehood. So I'm going to get into the system here a little bit. It's reinforced with celebration and with community bonds, you know. And when you do take a step back and look, it's not just a few traditions, it's a full system that shapes your belief, your identity, your behaviour from a very, very young age. You know, as a child, you're not thinking what ritual means, you're thinking about the dress, you're thinking about the day out, because you have to remember on your communion you're going to get put in this dress, you're going to get brought out for food, then you get brought around to your relatives and they're going to give you money for your communion. So as a kid you're thinking money, food, attention, going out, you know, like any kid would. So you can see how that's kind of reinforced with that as well. So yeah, the dress, the day out, the money. Looking back, I can see how that does keep you engaged as a kid without questioning what the fuck you're actually stepping into here, you know. Also, even the prayers as well in school, the repetition of them all the time. The rosary beads, having to say the Hail Marys, the repetition of it, and it wasn't about belief at that age. It was about doing it through the repetition that gets embedded, whether you realise it or not. And I will also, in the next temple library entry, touch a little bit deeper on the history of them rosary beads. You know, the history isn't connected to them. They're not made in the same way anymore, but there is a bit of history connected to them. So yeah, as you can see there's the reinforcement of this. There's celebrations each time. There's not stopping to really question it at all until later years, as I will go into more into the next entry. But yeah, as I was mentioning there, I do just want to touch back on the amount of like fear, shame that was embedded in Irish people from the Catholic Church. Like, it's you're made feel that sinful, that you're gonna probably go on fire if you walk past a church. And then also back in the day, when the priests or the nuns used to be out and about walking, if they'd walk by you, you'd have to stop and bless yourself. Like, some people would be even blessing themselves just walking past a church. Like, that's how embedded it used to be. I'm just going to touch on my experience now. I'm breaking it with my daughter, and choosing differently. She's after getting out of that indoctrination, she won't be making her confirmation, and she's not going to be doing any more of that, you know. In all fairness, a lot of the time as well, it's kind of reinforced by the school and by family, whereas I didn't reinforce that. And like that, I like, even though I wasn't awake on my journey when I had her, it wasn't long. I think she was about 2 when I did go on my journey, but before that I just knew the church was dodgy. And I'll get into that more in my next video. You'll understand why. But yeah, for generations it was just the done thing. It wasn't questioned. It was only in the more recent years that people have started to pause and look at it and what's happening underneath it all. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know where it's at right now with the belief system and with faith and with stuff like that in Ireland. From what I can tell, like, from my generation, it totally fell off. Kind of fell off a little bit before that as well. But yeah, I'll get into that more in the next video. I hope I've kind of painted a little bit of a picture there for you with the ritual and the structure, the symbolic imprinting, the identity shaping, the emotional reinforcement, and then the material reinforcement. So yeah, I hope that this helped in some way. I hope maybe it was a little bit of an insight as well. I know it's heavy topics, but each chamber and temple library entry in the temple is opened at your own pace. Well, I hope I've kind of painted a little bit of a picture there for you with the ritual and the structure, the symbolic imprinting, the identity shaping, the emotional reinforcement, and then the material reinforcement. So yeah, I hope that this helped in some way. I hope maybe it was a little bit of an insight as well. I know it's heavy topics, but each chamber and temple library entry in the temple is opened at your own pace.